So today we're looking at changing the subject of the formula. So first of all, the subject is a pronumeral with no numbers on the left-hand side of the equal sign. So for example, in A equals half BH, the subject of the formula is A, because A is on the left and it's all by himself. In X equals minus B plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4AC over 2A, the subject of the formula is X, because X is on the left and it doesn't have any numbers with it. So we can change the subject of a formula by getting the desired pronumeral by itself, like we solved equations before. So changing the subject works the same as solving equations. The only difference is that instead of ending up with a number on the right, we end up with an expression. So we don't end up finding that X equals 3. We're going to get some other situation. So here's an example of a level 1 question. The force on an object is given by the formula F equals ma, where F is the force, m is the mass of the object, and a is the acceleration. Make m the subject of the equation. So right now we have an equation where F is the subject, because F is on the left by itself, but we want m to be alone. So we have to undo everything that's being done to m. So again, we're thinking of it like solving an equation. Right now, m is being times by a. So we will need to divide by a to get m by itself. So then m equals F over a. And we normally like our subject to be on the left, so I did swap sides there, which is always allowed with equations. You can always just swap the left-hand side and the right-hand side. Totally fine. To make a the subject of the equation, again, we're starting with that original equation, which has F as the subject. We need to get a by itself. Right now it's being times by m, so we need to divide by m, which leaves us with a equals F over m. Again, I swapped the sides, but that's completely legal. Find the acceleration when m equals 3 and F equals 12. So this is what we actually changed the subject for. When we're finding the acceleration, we want acceleration to be the subject because we want it to be by itself so that we can figure out what it is. So the one we're actually going to use is that bottom one there, a equals F over m, because we're finding acceleration. And normally the pronumerals that we want to have on the right-hand side are ones where we know what they are, what number they are. So because we know that F is 12 and m is 3, that's a good formula to use because it's F and m and we both know what they both are, and so it's ready to solve straight away. So all we need to do then is substitute. So F is 12 and m is 3, so we put that in their correct spots. And remember, 12 over 3 just means 12 divided by 3, so a is 4. Find the mass when a equals 14 and F is 77. So this time we're finding mass, so we want to use the equation that has m by itself. So we are going to use that first one that we found. So m equals F over a. So remember, F here is 77 and a is 14. We're going to substitute them in the correct spot. And a fraction, again, is just a division. That comes out to m equaling 5.5. Here's another level 1 question. Julie is paid $30 per hour. Her pay for the week is calculated using the formula W equals 30 outside of A plus 1.5B plus 2C, where W is the total pay, A is the normal hours worked, B is the hours worked at time and a half, and C is the hours worked at double time. Make A the subject of the equation. So A is kind of in brackets and stuck with all these other things, so we have to undo a few things to get A by itself. So we start with the original equation. We should always write it out first, every single time. First thing we want to do is get rid of that 30 that's multiplying by everything. So because it's multiplying, we're going to divide out. So on the left, we're left with W over 30, and now we've broken those guys out of the brackets. So we're ready to undo some of the plussing now. So because we want A to be by itself, right now it's being added 1.5B and 2C. So we're going to take both of them off at once. No need to do them one at a time. We're just going to take it all away so we get A by itself. Now remember, these do not have anything to do with the fraction. They don't go on the top or the bottom. They're just going right next to it. So we have W over 30 minus 1.5B minus 3C equals A. We're just going to swap the sides, and that is our equation with A as the subject. Make B the subject. We're going to have the first step is going to stay the same because we are still just getting rid of that 30 that's around everything. This time we need to get B by itself. So we're not taking away 1.5B and 2C. This time we're taking away A and 2C because they're the ones we want to get rid of because we only want to get B by itself. So again, it has nothing to do with the fraction. They go right next to it. With A, we were done at this point, but now we still have B being multiplied by 1.5. So we're going to need to divide by 1.5. And that is going to be a massive fraction. So that whole left-hand side is going to go in the numerator and the denominator is going to be 1.5. But that is our equation with B as the subject. So just remember, if you were dividing multiple terms on one side by one number, they are all going to be lumped together and being divided by that number. So it's good to just write it as a fraction so you know every single term is being divided by 1.5. To make C the subject of the equation, we have the first step be the same again. And now this time we're not taking away what we were before. This time we're taking away A and 1.5B. So remember, you're just taking away anything that is not with a pronumeral that we want. And we want C by itself. So we're taking away whatever's with it. Now we're left with that equaling 2C. Now in the second one, we had to divide by 1.5 because that was what was multiplying by B. Now we have C is multiplying by 2. So we just need to divide by 2. And again, we're going to put that in the denominator of a massive fraction. So Julie worked 10 hours at normal time, 5 at time and a half. She earned $825 for the week. Which formula do I use to find out the hours she worked at double time? So for this, we're going to look back at that yellow text up the top. We need to figure out what represents what. So W is the total pay. A is the normal hours worked. B is the hours worked at time and a half. And C is the hours worked at double time. We want to know how many hours she worked at double time. So we want the equation, which has C as the subject. So we're going to use that last one that we just found. So we're going to write that equation we just found, and then we just need to substitute in. So here's a little dot point list of what each pronumeral represents. And the information that we have is that her total pay was $825. The normal hours worked were 10, and the hours worked at time and a half were 5. So we just need to substitute in those known values to the right. And then once you're done, you can just type that into your calculator and it'll just do it all for you and you get C equals 5. But remember, if it asks you a real world question, you should give a real world answer. So instead of just leaving it C equals 5, we're going to say, therefore, Julie worked 5 hours at double time. So just like if someone asked you a question in real life, you would answer it with real life words. Okay, here's a level 2 question. The area of a circle is given by the formula A equals pi r squared, where A is the area and r is the radius. Make r the subject of the equation. So we'll start with the formula. We've got it expanded out because pronumerals right next to each other with no plussing or minusing between them just mean multiplying. So we can see that the r squared is being multiplied by pi. So we're going to divide out by pi. So we get A over pi equals r squared. Right now, r is being squared, so we need to do the opposite of squaring, which is square rooting. So we get r equals the square root of a over pi. So just remember, if you're square rooting, you are square rooting the whole thing. Hence, find the radius of a circle with an area of 30 centimeters squared. So in an exam, if you see the word hence, it wants you to use what you found in the previous part of the question. So hence just means we're going to use that r equals the square root of a over pi for this answer, because that's the whole point of rearranging things to make something the subject, is so we can easily find answers asking stuff about them. So we start by writing that formula again, but then we need to substitute in that a is 30. Remember, pi is a constant anyway, so that's going to stay as it is. So r is going to be the square root of 30 over pi, which comes up to a bit of a mess, but we will just shorten it to 2 decimal places. So the radius of the circle is 3.09 centimeters, and it's good to state what you've rounded to. So we just write in brackets 2 decimal places. Here's another level 2 question. The body mass index is B equals m over h squared, where m is the mass in kilos and h is the height in meters. Make m the subject of the formula. So So this one's easy enough. Right now, m is being divided by h squared. We just need to multiply it by h squared. So we get bh squared equals m. We're just going to swap the sides as usual. We want m on the left. So that one is done. But make h the subject of the formula a little trickier. We still need to multiply out by h squared first to get it out of that fraction. But now it is stuck with b, which we don't want. So we're going to divide out by b to get h by itself. But h is still squared after we do that. So we will need to take the square root. But remember, when we're square rooting, it's going to be square rooting that whole fraction. So h is going to be the square root of m over b. Now we want to find the height corrected 2 decimal places when b equals 20 and m equals 73. So we are given the information m and b, so they are the letters that we want to have on the right-hand side. So we want to use this second equation that we found out, which again, we're finding the height. We want height to be the subject, which it is in this second one. So all we need to do is substitute, always write our formula first and then substitute the information that we have. Make sure you're substituting in the correct spot. So m is on top, m is 73, we'll put that up there, and b is 20, which is on the bottom, so we put it down there. Run it through your calculator, you get a bit of a mess. It wants us to round to 2 decimal places, so that is going to be 1.91 meters. A level 3 question. Write the formula z equals the square root of r2 plus 2 pi fl squared with L as the subject. So we write our formula always, that's the first step. We want to undo everything that's been done to L, which is a fair few things. But the thing that's on the outside, because we want to work from the outside in, is that square root. So we have to get rid of that square root by doing the opposite, which is going to be squaring. So we're squaring both sides, which cancels out the square root on the right, and then that's going to make the z squared. Then we have r2 plus 2 pi fl squared. We just want to get rid of that hanger on. We're going to get rid of that r2. So we're left with z squared minus r2 equals 2 pi fl all squared. So we're still unpeeling everything that's been done to L, so we will need to square root to get rid of the squaring on that whole section. So we're square rooting both sides, but remember, on the left, we are square rooting that whole thing. So that whole left-hand side needs to go under 1 square root. And that is going to equal 2 pi fl now by itself. We need to get L by itself. Right now it's being times by 2 pi and f. So we're just going to divide out by that 2 pi f. The left-hand side is going to be divided by that, which means it's going to go on the top of the fraction, and that divisor is going to go on the bottom. So we get that L equals the square root of z squared minus r2 all over 2 pi f.